You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate it, folks. As always, the Chris Voss Show, the family that loves you but doesn't judge you. At least not as harshly as your grandmother. So there you go, man. We have an amazing guest on the show. He's an architect, and he's been doing all sorts of wonderful stuff around the world. Some of it you may have heard of. Some of it you may will be hearing about. And he's going to join us about his newest book that comes out August 1st, 2023. David Camp joins us on the show. He is the author of his new book, Nature, Design, and Health, Explorations of a Landscape Architect, telling us his story and his innovation and influential landscape design philosophy and practice in nature, design, and health. And I think you're going to learn a few things that are going to be really cool about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He's going to be joining us on the show to talk to us about his work. And David is the founding principal of DirtWorks, PC landscape architecture. Through practice, teaching, and writing and advocacy, David's leadership and unique contributions promoting health through design and nature are at the forefront of the profession. He's a Harvard Loeb Fellow in Advanced Environmental Studies. He's a MacDowell Colony Fellow, a member of the National Academy of Design, and widely recognized through awards, publications, and documentaries. He's a frequent guest speaker and writer, and he's an internationally recognized thought leader in the positive role of nature in the design of the built environment. He's taught and lectured at universities and schools across the United States, Europe, Asia. In 2012, University College Falmouth, and awarded David an honorary fellowship in recognition of his contributions to landscape architecture profession. Did I get some of those pronunciations correct? Falmouth and
you did very well, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. We're trying. I flunked second grade, so welcome to the show, David. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
It's an honor to have you on, sir, as well. Give us a .com wherever you want people to find you on the interwebs, please.
Very good. naturedesignhealth.com, all one word, and you'll get a little bit of information on the book and me.
There you go. So what motivated you on to write this book, sir?
Wow. It was a moment in my career where I had a chance to pause and to look at what I've discovered and to find a way to share with others how landscapes could be designed to promote health.
There you go. Give us a 30,000 overview of some of the tease outs or details of the book.
Wow. It's a memoir. So it really starts with a childhood fascination, with nature and design. And along the way, I discovered a deeper connection. And it reduces stress. It strengthens our sense of identity. It instills a sense of hope and promise. And I've realized over the course of my career that crisis isolates, and nature can help reconnect us, and design can help do that. By offering people what I say is opportunity and choice for everyone to connect with nature in their own way, on their own terms, and at their own pace.
And so why do we have this affinity with nature? I mean, why don't we just adopt, the New York sort of skyline and go, who needs trees? Why is that important to us, I guess?
Well, there really are some significant links. This idea of our connections to nature. There's a number of theories, if I could share a couple with you.
Please
and help frame some of what the work is about. Part of it, and some theories look at the idea of an evolutionary link, that compels us to connect to nature. There's an innate attraction to greenness. Or nature triggers a physiological response that helps lower stress levels. Or nature restores our cognitive resources and helping us concentrate. There was an interesting report out that looked at, I guess it came out about a month or so ago in something called Science Advances. I don't know the magazine, but evidently it looked at the idea of what do we know? And they reviewed hundreds of scientific papers, and they identified over 200 positive links to nature.
Oh, wow.
To give you an example, just being exposed to nature, it improves our mood. It's the balm to busy lives. And
Mhm.
listen, we're all busy, but not only active and let's say healthy people are busy, but illness and chronic conditions can be consuming. So this idea of improving mood really does begin to influence stress. So you start to see how.
You broke up there a little bit. You said you start to see. You broke up there a little bit, David. You said you start to see what?
I start to see all these connections that since this exposure to nature begins to affect our bodies and our
Mhm.
minds, and that great connection between the mind and the body.
There you go. And it's because I mean, in essence, we're really cavemen when it comes down to it. A lot of what we do really goes back to our biological nature, and maybe some could say our sea nature, of crawling up from the sea, and our love of the ocean, our love of, I think maybe we feel that connection with nature,
Yeah,
maybe depend upon what you want to believe. But I think everything we do goes back to caveman times, hunter gatherer sort of stuff. When we really behave, there's a lot of BS that we talk about and go, oh, we're evolved. No, not really.
listen, it's part of us,
Yeah.
and that's what's kind of interesting is we've had these sort of pendulum swings. We're sort of part of nature, and then we're not part of nature. It's kind of nice to see the pendulum swinging back into realizing, hey, it's simply part of who we are.
Yeah. And then oxygen's kind of cool that comes off the trees and
Sure,
bushes as well. I've heard that's a really cool thing,
that helps us too.
especially if you're on Mars. Uh, and so what you've done is you've spent your career designing landscapes as an architect and making them so that they have this wonderful design that can kind of inspire people, motivate people, make people feel good, make people, feel all sorts of different feelings and kind of, enjoy something other than, looking at brick walls.
Yeah. A, a, a lot of what the work is trying to do is offer people choices.
Mm,
And when you're dealing with individual crisis or climate crisis, we need to find ways that help us cope with changing circumstances. I mean, I'm in Florida right now, and it's the idea
David, we lost you again.
choosing health is empowering,
Yeah.
particularly for those who have few options.
There you go. I'll have to edit this, David. We lost you again on
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
internet there.
I don't know what the connection problem is. It's
Yeah.
using our
You
internet,
you
but
were saying I lost you at the point you're saying I'm in Florida right now. If
yeah.
you want to
But,
recut that.
sure. It's I'm in Florida right now with a heat index of about 115, and one of the things that I think we're all having to come to terms with is really understanding how we cope with drastically changing circumstances, be it individual or collective. And what I'm hoping to do is show people how design can help us choose health,
Mhm.
because choosing health is empowering, and it's empowering particularly for those with few options.
There you go. And speaking of that, you had in the mid '90s done something really wonderful, and volunteered to design one of the first gardens created specifically for individuals with HIV and AIDS. The
Yes.
Joel, I'm not sure if I'll get this last name pronunciation correct. Schapner,
Schnapper. Yes.
Schnapper. Okay,
Yes.
the Joel Schnapper Memorial Garden at the Terrence Cardinal Cook Health Center in East Harlem. Tell us a little bit about that and what you did there.
It was a terrific project. And it's interesting, Chris. That is one of those foundational projects that I've drawn upon for decades now.
Hmm.
When we were asked to come up to Cardinal Cook Healthcare Facility back in 1994. And if your memory holds, this was at a point in the AIDS crisis where there were no cocktails, there were no medical protocols. Misinformation, morphed into terrible situations. They asked me to come up because they had no other choice but to offer palliative care. And what they did was they looked to nature, which we've often done throughout the centuries. Look at Alzheimer's, look at, the old monastic gardens. Their, in a sense, mission at the time was simply to care for these individuals. So we had, in a sense, no medical protocols to draw upon, no design research to draw upon. So we simply asked individuals, both staff members, two words that I've used as my sort of foundational design, motivations: providing opportunity and choice. So we built a garden that gave people choices. You can choose to step outside and just be a moment outside before you go back in. You can go further in, but the further in you go, the more experiences that you could enjoy.
Wow.
So in a sense, it was an interesting project to sort of understand the psychology of design, how design can offer you the opportunity to test yourself, or simply to say no. So it was a enlightening project, Chris, and one that, like I said, has influenced my work now for decades.
There you go. And for a lot of people who are listening and considering this book, this not only applies to what you did, but how people set up their home, or how people set up their backyards, or try and this book can inspire them to maybe do better at building their areas. There's this thing called feng shui, and sometimes people feel better in an environment that is more, I don't know. You may have a better word for it than I do. Is there any truth to that in designing stuff so that there's a more flow feeling to things, and you can feel better about your life?
Absolutely. One of the things that I wanted to share in the book was the range of settings that this applies to. It applies to our schools, it applies to our homes, it applies to parks, it applies to streets, it applies to healthcare settings. And all of those sort of draw upon one simple idea, and that's take the time to pause, pay attention to nature, but also to think deliberately, because design can be a tool for living deliberately. Think about where you enjoy your coffee, where you need to have a drink at the end of the day. Be mindful of how design can be a tool. It's a tremendous tool. A lot of people think of design as a decorating item, and sure, that's a piece of it, but design creates spaces, and these spaces can be deliberate spaces for the way that you, meaning you, want to live.
And your first design project, the landscape for Australia's grand new Parliament House complex in Canberra. Tell us about that.
That was, I was very young. My boss at the time told me I would never see another project like this in my life, and I haven't. But it was another one of those foundational projects, in the sense that we were part of a design team that won a competition. This was considered one of the major design commissions of the 20th century, and we came down to Australia to design the government's home. And what I learned during that project, Chris, was how design can instill a sense of identity. We had to design for one individual who was coming to visit, and yet we had to design as an expression of what the nation was about. So you can begin to see how design and this idea of instilling identity transcends scale. It reached the individual and it reached the collective. So it was a tremendous project to understand the power of design, and how it can be used to do good.
There you go. You have a lot of what are those famous gardens in France? I'm trying to think of.
Do you mean like, in Paris, like the Tuileries?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
talk about a great public space. And again, it's an It's a space to be intimate with nature, and yet it's a collective space to all be part of an experience. And I love that idea of balancing public and private,
Mhm.
intimacy and in a public sense. A lot of our gardens that we've designed in public settings have tried to look at very individual needs. Somebody who shuffles their feet, somebody who has cerebral palsy, somebody who's blind. We need to engage those individuals in a public setting as well as a space for those who might be more healthy or more, let's say, accessible.
Mhm. And throughout the world, they have beautiful gardens. I think the ones I was trying to remember were some from Marie Antoinette. Didn't she do some sort of
Oh,
special
oh, well,
gardens?
sure. Versailles
Versailles, yeah.
has some pretty significant gardens.
There you
Um,
go.
Very much, again, about the power of an
Hmm.
individual's choice. Those were designed to express a sense of power. And
Hmm.
yet, when you walk them, they're incredible moments of intimacy. And I love for people, and people have to allow themselves this, to have that intimacy in nature. Not everyone seeks it, and not everyone welcomes it, but it's an immensely satisfying feeling. And I think that's are some of those collective senses that will help us through challenging times, finding those threads that we all share, to help us deal with the challenges we have.
There you go. So as we go out, what sort of final thoughts do you have, or teasers on the book that you want to share that people
Um,
might find inside of it to pick it up?
well, I hope people read this as sort of it's simply a way to look at the world and to understand our place in it, how to improve it, how to understand the tools we have at our disposal, and perhaps in the process, help understand, and perhaps find a desire to protect nature, to nurture that what nurtures us.
There you go. Certainly beauty helps. I think oxygen helps. I mean, one thing we're finding now with climate change is having trees around really lowers the temperature a little bit. So, I've
Sure.
kind of noticed that when I go in my backyard, it's full of these old trees. It's like the temperature is very much different in the backyard than it is in the front.
Yeah. Yeah. But isn't
So,
it great to all of a sudden become aware of something you've taken for granted for so long?
exactly. Yeah. And it's time we probably stop taking certain things for granted because I mean, you see what's going on in some of the horrors around the world. We recently
Oh,
saw the
boy.
fires in Maui and
Oh,
Hawaii,
ah,
and just extraordinary and sad. But it's nature's an important aspect and part of us, and we got to take care of us because it seems to take care of us a little bit. So
that's well put, Chris. Very well put.
I like my oxygen. I'm into that these days. I just picked it up lately. It's a new thing. It's a new hobby of mine. Enjoying oxygen. Yeah, I like that breathing thing. I'm not going to Mars anytime soon. Screw that. Screw that, man.
Let's stay here and work on what we've got right here.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take care of that. So, David, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate
Uh,
it. Give us your .coms again so people can find you on the
yes,
interwebs.
naturedesignhealth.com.
There you go. Well, David, it's been wonderful and insightful to have the show, and thank you for the wonderful things you've done for people around the world and inspired them. And keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you, Chris. I enjoyed this so much. Bye bye.
There you go. And thanks to my audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Order up the book wherever fine books are sold. Nature, Design, and Health. Explorations of a Landscape Architect. Available August 1st, 2023. You can order it wherever fine books are sold. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.